While your people may have been engaged in violent, lethal class struggle for millions of sweeps, by no means does this imply that the Befren way of life was entirely without problematic elements, perhaps even more disturbing and insidious for their lack of acknowledgement and open discussion, particularly as a consequence of what, in my view, were widely and dismayingly unexamined systematic social injustices resulting from the entrenched power dynamics in play, dynamics strikingly similar to those of your planet's markedly more bellicose iteration, which has only served to fully vindicate my hypothesis that such a hierarchy is really predicated on intrinsic dysfunction, and failure to shift all of the usual narratives and undiagnosed problems into an open, judgment-free discourse through which problematic issues are constructively channeled into more intelligently problematized avenues of discussion. Now, before I continue, it is only decent of me to warn you about certain triggers that are surely ahead in this essay. I mean conversation. Triggers include, but most likely will not be limited to, class oppression, culture, and violence against grubs, loose as abuse, complementary and analogous hate speech, pale filling, slurries, and other concupiscent fluids, lifespan shaming, ableist slurs, prolix dissertation. Actually, maybe it would be easier for you to list your triggers, and I'll do my best to avoid those topics, or navigate them more delicately, if at all possible. Great! It sounds like you don't have any triggers, at least none that you know about. I'll proceed with caution nevertheless. Just please let me know if you start feeling triggered by anything I'm saying, and we can take a brief time out while you summon your morale to help pacify you, assuming that you have one. Not that I'm presuming you do, but I heard that you did. Is that correct? If not, I apologize. I further apologize if your orientation precludes the possibility, as a pale aromantic, pan-quadrant demiromantic, something in the gray pale sexual department or such, and hopefully you are not triggered by such presumptuous conciliatory affirmative language. It wouldn't be the first time I was guilty of such an inexcusable microaggression, and I am not so oblivious to my own romantic privilege to believe it will be the last time either. I'm glad I brought up the subject of unexamined privilege, because it dovetails beautifully into the point I was about to make regarding Beforian society and its savage umbral potentiality, which later manifested through the kind of Alternian brutality you are all too familiar with. Those in high echelons of the hemospectrum, such as the Ceruleans or Blue Bloods, careful, being loose with such terminology is opening the floodgates to a whole host of toxic sinus language and hemophobic slurs when addressing the challenges faced by those lower on the spectrum, such as the mid-hues, or in particular warm casts like umbers, ochres, or rust bloods, another slur, highly problematic, deeply offensive, and triggering terminology, strongly inspiring you to steer clear of this term. They would be well advised to check their cerulean privilege, particularly before dismissing hardships or marginalizing claims of oppression, which can be difficult for them to identify or empathize with from their advantageous position within the Beforian Alternian power structures. And some may argue that our peaceful utopian culture that we have freed ourselves from injustice and disparities in privilege in a post-scarcity economy, largely equal rights distributed across the hemospectrum, and therefore exist in a post-spectral world, laugh out loud, and therefore there is no need to champion important social causes, and there is nothing left to debate. But really nothing could be further from the truth. You just need to educate yourself, and carefully investigate the long-standing power dynamics in play. For instance, a seemingly harmless remark from a cis-blooded cerulean towards an umber or, God forbid, a burgundy, or yes, even a warm-identifying, physically cooler caste, about their very long future-term plans, such as on the order of centuries, then this may prove to be a very hurtful microaggression due to the fact that low hues cannot possibly live that long themselves, and the more privileged class should easily outlive dozens of generations of mid-hues or hundreds of generations of BUGYs, burgundy, umber, ochre, yellow greens. Note, please avoid describing the lattermost as lime bloods, as it has been historically used as an especially vicious epithet. Such remarks can further trigger painful reminders of how cooler castes, to some extent, J9As, or OJAs, but CIPs and Royal Vs in particular, have been able to use their tremendous lifespans over the millennia to gain a stranglehold over the social order, have been able to completely dictate our societal evolution by ensuring only their cultural agendas and narratives receive the dialogue's air supply, assuring the condition of those resultant ideals and deciding what normalcy entails. And sadly, these absolutes become internalized across the full spectral range because within those of most even within those of most compromised privilege, and so you begin to see the cyclical nature of the dysfunction and the resulting inertia against positive change and raising awareness on the most under-problematized issues, which I think we can agree is pretty problematic. And really, it's everyone's business to examine their privilege, even Burgundians, who may be subject to the pitfall of believing incorrectly that they are none on the scale beneath them, who may enjoy certain privileges over, which off-spectrum trolls will never know, such as those identifying as other bloods or caste multiples, polyblood, and who hemologically ID as a caste which manifests nowhere, as yet known, in anyone physically, or for that matter, off-specs who physically do possess such a blood type, or mutants, very problematic term, highly triggering to some, be warned, such as you and I, Carcat. But this puts us in the But this puts us both in a situation to which our knowledge uniquely allows us to understand and empathize with tragically underprivileged and underpowered groups across all scuttles of life, supporting us both what I like to call a uniquely underprivileged privilege, which, yes, is kind of a privilege we should both strive to check as well, whenever we can. The same uniquely underprivileged perspective is, I'm sure you know, was disadvantaged upon by my post-scratch iteration as well, and while I have no doubt you justifiably came to revere that figure of your planet's rich history and your personal lineage, and while his goals of peace, equality, and a truly spectrum-blind society, I'm afraid I personally have trouble condoning his methods. I don't like to use the term problematic lightly, but, well, his tactics were nothing if not massively problematic. To say the least, employing violent uprising to effect change and emblazing his mark upon history and his faithful followers with the salty flourish of a single rude, shouted swear word. It's not to my taste, even though he is who I would have grown up to be in another life. But no, I prefer to effect social change through rational, honest discourse and contributing to ongoing dialogues, focusing on what should be the real goals through keen adherence to the discipline of problematics, ensuring that we should stay focused on successfully problematizing a wide range of directly undercomplicated social dilemmas. It's nice to see that we agree on so much. Maybe we're not so unlike, despite our drastically different upbringings. Anyway, as I was saying, the story of your ancestor, more importantly the exhaustive list of misgivings which his approach to social change, is quite a long and elaborate one, but actually fits brilliantly within our larger mosaic which captures the broad strokes of my past. Our discussion. Trigger warnings for the following content include ancestor bashing, faith shaming, loud swearing, torture, burn wounds, ship sinking. Again, seriously, let me know if you begin to feel triggered by anything even slightly. We'll pause and see if we can really explore those issues and identify exactly how I have invalidated your struggles. Fuck you guys. Fuck you guys as hard as humanly possible. I'm serious. Goddamn. And I'm not fixing the errors. They can stay in. I'm done. Enjoy it. Whatever.